Let's get started. Welcome everyone to Getting Approved to Fly with ForeFlight. In this webinar, we'll be discussing regulatory approval for organizations to begin using ForeFlight for charting and navigation. Let's go ahead and meet our presenters for today. Guys, go ahead and tell us about yourselves.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. My name is Thach Vandenberg. I'm a Boeing Associate Technical Fellow. I've been in aviation for many years in a diverse set of roles from air traffic controller to airline pilot. And for the last 20 years, I've been supporting Jeppesen and Boeing EFB programs relative to regulatory compliance and customer approval activities. I look forward to presenting to you in a few moments.
My name is Martin Lund. I work for customer success for the international branch and also regulatory support manager. I have my residential in Denmark and work out of the Odense office.
Hi, I'm Camilla. I'm with ForeFlight in the customer success team in EMEA, so Europe region. I have a background within sales, operation, and dispatch from a small company in Denmark, where I'm also based, and also as a commercial cargo pilot on an ATR.
And my name is Jay Wiles. I work on the marketing team here at ForeFlight, and I produce all of our webinars. On today's agenda, we'll start with the sunset of Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck. We'll talk about the timeline and what this means for your existing chart coverage. After that, we'll take a broad look at international EFB regulations, the 5-step approval process you can expect when switching to ForeFlight, and other significant elements of getting regulatory approval. Then we'll talk about the support that ForeFlight provides for operators. We'll go over the documentation package we have prepared for you to download, and we'll show you where operators are already having success in getting approval to fly with ForeFlight. We'll then review similarities between Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck and ForeFlight. We'll demonstrate the multiple places you can access charts in ForeFlight, as well as how to assemble flight binders, and we'll cover some basics on how to navigate the app, use the map, and see smart notes, which are called operational notes in ForeFlight. And then we'll take a brief look at additional features and benefits that ForeFlight provides that aren't in JepFD. After that, we'll wrap up with some Q&A at the end. But before we move on, I want to emphasize the regulatory approval process we're talking about today only applies to multi-pilot accounts that require regulatory approval. If you're an individual user, you can go ahead and purchase ForeFlight. And if you use JepFD now, or if you have in the past, today's presentation will still help you become familiar with the ForeFlight interface and where to access charts. Before we begin, I want to mention you can ask questions during today's presentation using the GoToWebinar message panel on the right side of your screen. We'll respond one-on-one to as many questions as we can during today's presentation. We'll also take a few of the more popular questions that come in and answer them live at the end. If you have a question, ask it as soon as you think of it. As we get toward the end of webinars, the number of questions coming in goes up, making it less likely that we'll have time to get to everyone. If you encounter audio or other technical problems during today's webinar, first try leaving and rejoining the webinar. We've also found that customers joining from computers tend to have fewer problems using GoToWebinar than those trying to watch on mobile devices. Lastly, this session is being recorded and it will be posted at foreflight.com/webinars in the next 24 hours. So with that, let's get started. First, we're going to briefly cover the sunset timeline for Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck. Support for JepFD will end on the 25th of January 2024 when the 2401 AIRAC chart cycle becomes effective. Updated chart and data downloads will not be delivered for the 2402 AIRAC cycle and beyond, so the app will only provide expired charts and data from then on. Additionally, JepFD will be removed from Apple's App Store on the sunset date to prevent the app from being installed on new devices. However, JepFD will remain on devices that already have it installed. When Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck is sunset though, your Jeppesen charting coverages will remain intact. There will be no change to your chart coverage, and all data updates will be delivered in ForeFlight. It's important to point out this sunset does not apply to or affect Jeppesen FliteDeck Pro in any way. That's a separate app used by commercial airlines around the world. The information in today's presentation is intended for non-airline commercial operators. If you are part of an airline, please contact us at sales@foreflight.com so we can work with you on the best solution for your operation. Now I'm going to hand things over to Thach for a big picture look at regulatory issues that affect switching EFBs for your organization.
Thank you, Jay. Hello all again. I am just going to give you guys a quick refresher on what is expected related to getting to EFB program approval, with emphasis on the fact that this effort going from your current approved EFB program and bringing in ForeFlight Mobile in replacement to Mobile FliteDeck should really be handled simply as a delta or a differences activity. And when combined with all the support that you will receive in making that transition, should be a relatively minor effort, all things considered. So again, as you all probably remember, the regulatory approval process exists of 5 different phases. The first of which is when you tell your regulator that you want to make a change to your EFB program. And of course, in this case, it would be that you're changing the EFB application you're using from Mobile FliteDeck to ForeFlight. That will then get you in their official queue, if you will, with perhaps even a project number. And once you have that, then you can go in and start putting together the accounting of the differences, the delta between what you have now and what bringing on ForeFlight will affect. And once you account for all of that, you provide that back to the regulator in the form of an application. And then once they have a look at that and believe you've covered everything, you then go into the third phase, where you and perhaps working with your regulator actually then go into all of your various components of your EFB program and review what is specifically needed to get from what was to what needs to be, and start to put those changes into place. And once you have those all in place, to the satisfaction of your regulator, they will then grant you an interim approval to use the new solution, i.e. ForeFlight Mobile, in your line operations. And they may require you, as is the case when you first bring on an EFB application in replacement of paper, to continue to use your existing solution, i.e. Mobile FliteDeck, which is, as Jay pointed out, given the sunset plans, would and should perhaps encourage you to get going now so that you can use Mobile FliteDeck in parallel. Otherwise, you perhaps may have to have something else as a backup. But at any rate, you will have approval, interim approval. And once you've completed that and provided that accounting back to the regulator, they'll grant you your final approval, where you can then start using ForeFlight Mobile just as you had been using Mobile FliteDeck. So there will be sort of some significant elements, and these are things that just occur to me after my years of experience with that. It's that will be helpful to you. One, make sure you communicate regularly with your regulator once you've started this all off, because it will be important to solicit their feedback or for you to give them feedback and update on your progress. That just keeps everything in sync. And as you might imagine, your emphasis really needs to be on your particular responsibilities relative to policy. Then in terms of the program evaluation itself, again, it's a delta evaluation, and you want to focus not only on the EFB application and the functional differences, but also any effects that might have elsewhere in your approved EFB program, for instance, to training or maintenance or anything that might be within scope of your program. And then, like I said before, that's likely minimal compared to your very initial approval activities that you went through. If you aren't provided a checklist by your NA or your regulator to help you through that process, I would suggest that perhaps you may find value in the FAA's 8900.1 order, and specifically Volume 4, Chapter 15. Those would be very helpful, as they're really consistent around the world, and you can find those online. Then ultimately you'll submit all the report, not only the initial report, but then the final report, and the details that you will have in that final report, you will have worked out along the way with your regulator. And here's just a few notes for you, just to close up my section. I think might be helpful to you, I would suggest that you take any materials that you get from ForeFlight relative to the state of compliance, regulatory compliance. Once you take possession, or once the ForeFlight mobile application is delivered to you, you can then provide that to the regulator and say, here's material that we've gotten from ForeFlight Mobile. And as you can see, they have gone line by line through the regulatory policy. And there are items that we will complete as part of our activities to get to approval. Again, and finally, this should all just be a delta exercise, changing what you have in your EFB program related to Mobile FliteDeck to whatever is required for ForeFlight Mobile. It should all be relatively straightforward, and I wish you all the best of luck. And now you'll hear from Martin, who will tell you more about what ForeFlight will specifically provide to you.
Thanks, Thatch. So what we do is that we provide documentation and guidance material for our customers and soon-to-be customers that are starting the process of applying the Type B approval, basically on covering EASA regulation, but also international, and between the operators and the authorities of the AOC of their origin. So what we did was we collected a package that consists of various documents, among others, compliance matrix, risk assessments, decompression reports, but also other relevant documentations that are relevant for the application. So currently, we cover the aspects of navigation, which is where we have the most of our customers covered from, but we're also building our package and documentation around expanding to other areas, also to cover mass and balance, runway analysis, and active navlog. So what we did was we built a sub-page for our ForeFlight homepage, which is accessible if you are either a trial customer or subscribed customer. You will use your login and password from ForeFlight to log in and either download single documents or the full package. This link will be sent to you via the sales team or customer success. As our support group here will also follow up on the process that you are as a customer. So we keep contact with you to monitor if you run into any issues with your potential regulators, something we can assist you with along the way, but also to have a full updated picture on which companies/countries that are approved within the Type B regulation. It's vital for us to stress that this is not an EASA template that we have, and we are applying from a software provider standpoint. This is an approval that goes from the operator to the authority, and that is, as you see on the screen here, the SPA EFB 100 that defines that it's the operator that's been granted the approval from the competent authority within your country. So right now we have a quite substantial list of countries in Europe within the EASA regulations that are approved already for navigation with the use of ForeFlight. A handful of actually 15 countries right now are approved within the 26 countries that we know where ForeFlight is represented. On top of that, we have contact with companies in 4 countries: Netherlands, Austria, Switzerland, and Serbia. And they are to be approved within the next couple of months, actually. So a quite large part of Europe is actually getting approved with using the use of ForeFlight for navigational use. And the most of them have 0 to none pushback from the authorities using the documentation package that we have. So the documentation package consists of one big vital document called the compliance matrix. It's built up by various chapters and now related to the implementation and the approval of using the app for chart viewing/navigation. There will be some cases where ForeFlight is able to satisfy the entirety of it, where others is only satisfied by the operator. Also, some are shared responsibility between ForeFlight and the operator, and for those last items, notes has been entered explaining what the ForeFlight contribution is. Another document is the operational risk assessment. So that's a document that is provided by us and can be used as support and development for you as an operator to build your own risk assessment. As the rules and the regulations say by the OGN 200 is that the final risk assessment must be carried out by each operator prior to entry into operation of the EFB system, and parts of it should be the hazard identification and the risk management process. One of the other documents that are available to that documentation package is the Ops Approval Quick Reference Guide, which is us basically made some documentation around narrowing down the search for items that are related to navigational functions within ForeFlight's Pilot's Guide. Also, we have the ForeFlight Mobile Legend, which is an addendum that describes the coloring, symbology, and layering that are used in ForeFlight Mobile and can be used for the operator to make HMI assessment. And last but not least, another joint documentation document with Jeppesen is the Rapid Decompression Test Report, which is test result for all the iPad models which are currently supported by the latest iOS version. We do not support the early versions that are outdated or no longer supported by Apple. So this concludes my presentation and the short rundown of the documentation package that are provided from ForeFlight, and I will hand over to you, Jay.
Thanks, Martin. Camilla, who's up next, is going to demonstrate many key aspects of ForeFlight, including how to activate your Jeppesen charting coverages in ForeFlight. But before that, as you prepare to make this transition, I want to show you how to deactivate your charts for pilots in your organization through my.jeppesen.com. Now, you may need to do this first so you can free up the coverage seat before activating charts in ForeFlight. So on the bottom right of this screen, click on the Manage Installs section. From this view, you can disable individual licenses, so on this screen you'll click Deactivate. After you do that, this box will appear to confirm the deactivation, and once you click Deactivate here, it cannot be undone. If you're an individual Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck customer, you can deactivate your charts directly in JepFD. In the iOS Settings app on your device, scroll down on the left-hand menu until you find JepFD and select it. Then scroll to the bottom of the settings list on the right and enable the very last option that's labeled Deactivate. After that, you'll open JepFD to confirm the deactivation, and then you can activate your charting coverage in ForeFlight. To show us how to do that and much more, I'm going to hand things over to Camilla.
Thanks, Jay. So I'll start here by showing that once you've logged into the ForeFlight Mobile part, the most important part to be able to see your Jeppesen charts within the app is to go to the More tab. Here you can scroll down in the right hand side, you can scroll down to the Jeppesen tab. This is where you can install any coverage that your admin have linked on the account. You simply just hit the install coverage, and then you hit whatever coverage you might need. You'll hit the install button. Here it will now make sure that it's linking the coverage that you will need for your operation within the ForeFlight Mobile app. In the More tab here, you can also go to the Accounts page. Here you will be able to change your password, and if you were to forget it, you could also hit Forgot Password. And you will also have an overview of your subscription, and if you were to need it, you can sign out of the device. From the More tab, you can also see the most latest version of the app. If you go to the About, then in the top you will see it states above About version 15 point something, and that is the most latest version of the ForeFlight Mobile app. Right now there is a small one in the More tab that basically shows us that we have some downloads that we haven't done, or it is downloading something. And if you hit the More tab and you go to Downloads, this is where you have an overview of the downloads, and you can manually also go in and select any downloads if you need to. Otherwise, it will automatically start the download, and you will find the dates for the currency of the charts here. And then you scroll down, you will find a section here that says Jeppesen charts, where you will be able to check the dates of the en route charts and the terminal charts. Now moving forward to see the charts, you would go to the flights page. From here, you will have the flight that you are gonna do today with the overview. And then in the right-hand corner, you click the Send To. From here, you can send the flight to the Plates or Charts place tab. Simply just click it, and that will create a binder. This flight binder will then create the destination and departure airport with the specific charts that you might need. So here, as you know it, you simply can click on the departure icon, and then you can select multiple departure plates if needed. The same applies, of course, for the departure, where you can tick multiple charts off, and that will make you being able to swap between charts as you know it with 3 fingers, simply sliding from one side to another, sliding between the charts. You will also be able to zoom in and zoom out of the charts, and even making any annotations. So if you want to highlight anything on the charts, you simply just click that, and then you can draw anything on that. And then in the upper right hand corner, you can hit done. That will save the annotation, and then when you then send them to the maps page, you will be able to see those again. If you were to need it, you can hit the different airport tabs here. So if you hit Pisa here, you can click that one, and then you can select a different airport. So if you are going to your alternate, you can simply just search by the airport here. So let's say we're going to Rome, you can actually search that, and it will find the airport. So you will be able to swap between that in order to change the airport, so you can see different charts for the different airport. If you go back to the flights page, you can from here send the flight to the maps page, again upper right hand corner, and send it to the map. Now you have a view that you will know, and from here you can zoom in and out, and then you see the long route all the way. In the upper left hand corner, you can select multiple layers on this view, where you can go to the IFR low or the IFR high, and you will also have other multiple layers that you can add on top of this layer if you want to. You can even, on the left hand side here, you can add multiple layers also, so as you know, so you can add any airport rings, airways, terrain, etc. simply by a quick filter here on the left hand side. Other different settings for the layers will be found up here in the settings in the small gearbox sign. Here you have a way to quickly access some of the map layers, depending on what layer and view you want, and other extended settings will be found on the More tab and in the Settings tab, where you can search by any different settings. This is also where you can change the app theme if you want it in light mode or dark mode, depending on when you're flying. From here, as you know from previous year, and you might be used to, you can also find the UPS nodes. You can simply click on this small number. And that will, of course, as you also know it, it will highlight an area where you'll have some specific details. And then as you see here on the right hand side, the number 2 is some operational notes where you can find that with all the specific information that this operational note might hold. To see the charts on this map layer, you can do it by multiple ways. You can click on the flight plan window here in the top. You can click on the airport, and then you can see in the bottom, show plate. Then you can select what plate you want to see. From here, you can click on any of the plates you want to see, and then you will have the chart overlaid on the map. So if you need to follow a specific procedure, that will even show on the map too. You can click on the small icon here on the left-hand corner of the chart. And from here, you can dim, if you want to, the chart. You can invert the colors, depending on if you're flying at nighttime or not. And you will also be able to turn on and off any annotations that you might have created on the map. You can also hit on the right hand upper corner, you can hit the full screen to see the chart in full screen, like you had in the binders page, or go back to the maps page, and then you can hide the plate if you're done using it. You can also go to the search bar in the right hand corner, click, and then search by any airport. So again, let's say you're flying to an alternate today instead, and you want to find that one. You can search by it and find it in a list, or you can simply just click any airport that you might need, and from here that will open a small window on the right hand side with informations. And if you click procedures, you'll have the possibility to find any charts again, and it's all separated in specific tabs such as airport, departure, arrival, and approach. You simply just click the one you will need, and you can click on the map. If a chart has the map icon next to it on the right hand side, it means the map is geo-reference. That also means that you will be able to put it on the maps page. So if one of the maps, like here, like the EASA notes abatement, that means it's not geo-reference, which means you will not be able to put it over on the maps overlay. You can also go in the left hand corner. You can go to the airports page. From here, you will also be able to find the same information that I just showed you, where you have all the procedures from an airport and all the charts if you want to see them. It works the same, that you can have all the most recents that you just recently flown to. You can have your favorites, and you can search in the search bar up here and search by any airport you want to. This is how you will be able to see your charts within ForeFlight Mobile, to be able to use it for flying with the Jeppesen charts.
Thanks, Camilla. In addition to the benefits Camilla demonstrated, which you can already do in Mobile FliteDeck, here are just a few of the many additional capabilities that you'll get with ForeFlight. First, flight plans can be filed directly from ForeFlight in supported regions. Routes, flight plans, documents, aircraft profiles, and much more are synced between all of the devices signed into your account, and they can be accessed in ForeFlight on the web as long as your devices are connected to the internet. ForeFlight also has a list of advanced performance capabilities with built-in aircraft performance models, comprehensive routing options, and much more. There are also numerous weather capabilities within ForeFlight. Camilla showed the layer selector on the Maps tab, where you can find many layers that can be added to the map, giving you the ability to see how weather could affect your flight. ForeFlight can also connect to some newer panel avionics. You can find out which models we support at foreflight.com/connect. And once you're in the ForeFlight ecosystem, you can make it do a lot more for your organization or flight department. It integrates with several other essential capabilities. ForeFlight Dispatch allows for collaborative multi-user flight planning, keeping your entire operation in sync by providing a centralized list of all planned and filed flights. Its scheduling API allows ForeFlight to integrate with scheduling providers and enterprise systems to load new flights. Dispatch also integrates with several popular flight service providers, including Jeppesen International Trip Planning Services. You can learn more at foreflight.com/dispatch. And lastly, Runway Analysis provides sophisticated runway and obstacle analysis for turbine aircraft. It's fully integrated with ForeFlight's planning workflow. Dispatchers and pilots can access runway analysis, helping ensure a safe flight. You can learn more about this at foreflight.com/RWA. As Martin mentioned, while the regulatory documents we currently offer only cover charting and navigation, they are in the process of being expanded to cover dispatch, runway analysis, and mass and balance. For EFB administrators, there are even more benefits to using ForeFlight. Here are just a few. Administrators can centrally manage organization aircraft, allowing for easier aircraft management and reduced setup time. Pilots can view the details of shared aircraft and use them for planning, but details of the aircraft, including performance profiles, are locked from editing except by the administrator. In addition to aircraft, administrators can manage users, their devices, and Jeppesen chart coverages for every pilot. We also offer self-serve commerce with simplified billing. That means you can go online and make changes or mix and match your chart coverages between pilots. You can also purchase an add-on like ForeFlight Dispatch or Runway Analysis, like we just talked about, for any aircraft in your fleet. As an administrator, you can also distribute company documents to pilots right in ForeFlight through Cloud Documents. That wraps up today's presentation. Before we answer some of the questions that came in today, I want to mention a few useful links for you. First, foreflight.com/regulatory-documents is where you can log into your ForeFlight account to download the documentation Martin reviewed earlier. Next, when you're ready to get started with ForeFlight Mobile, visit foreflight.com/first-steps. On that page, you can review the steps we talked about to move your Jeppesen charts from Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck into ForeFlight. You'll also learn how to configure other downloads, set up aircraft profiles, and start planning. Third, you can register for more webinars and watch past ones at foreflight.com/webinars. We have several webinars specifically covering using ForeFlight as a new customer, using ForeFlight Dispatch, taking you behind the scenes of runway analysis, and everything you need to know as the administrator of a multi-pilot or group account. Lastly, you can reach out to our sales team at sales@foreflight.com. They can set up a trial account so you can download the regulatory document package. And if you already have a trial account and you're ready to take the next step toward switching to ForeFlight, they're ready to help with that too. Now with that, let's move on to some questions. And thank you all for submitting questions today. We do have a few here. Some have to do with using ForeFlight, and some have to do with they're more regulatory focused. So Thatch, I want to bring you back in for a couple of questions here. The first one is, and this is one we hadn't actually talked about, so I'm going to throw you a curveball here. Can you talk a little bit, broadly speaking, not focused on any specific country, about which operators will need approval from their regulatory body to use an EFB, such as ForeFlight?
Yeah, sure. Generally speaking, and international policy is pretty consistent on this, commercial operators are required to be granted approval by their regulator for the entirety of an EFB program, and within that is the approval / authorization for flight crews to use those EFB functions. There are some minor exceptions to that, in that there are some kinds of non-commercial operators in both the FAA world and in the EASA world that also need to be granted approvals, but those are kind of corner cases. Generally speaking, however, that non-commercial operators or general aviation operators are essentially self-authorizing and are not required to be granted a formal approval.
Great. Thank you, Thatch.
Sure.
The next question I have for you is about the documents that we've talked about. So we've obviously talked a lot about EASA documentation. ForeFlight also has documentation available for seeking FAA approval. Now, obviously, primarily this webinar includes customers in the Asia Pacific region. So can you talk a little bit about how a lot of nations take their policies kind of from EASA and FAA?
Yeah, sure. And it really sort of has in its origins the fact that the EFB industry and those technologies kind of emerged in certain parts of the world, and regulatory policy was then created to accompany the emergence of those technologies. And so there are quite a lot of countries around the world that look to the FAA and their policy for precedent, and even for EASA. Originally, EASA looked to the FAA for their precedent, and now they have their own published policy. And same too with India, DGCA, and China, CAAC. They have their own published policies. But by and large, there really is fundamental consistency amongst all of them. So even for countries that perhaps don't lean one way or another, or don't leverage existing policies that came from other regulators, because they're consistent, we can certainly help every operator get what they need to provide to their regulator. And what we do ultimately is to provide an accounting of the state of compliance at the time of deployment of the application, but then also risk evaluation document, where we account for what may be considered to be residual risk that an operator needs to pre-mitigate, because of course EFB functions can have as much as a minor failure effect, and even a minor failure effect is a failure effect, and so the operator has to put something in place so that should something happen in terms of failure or malfunction of an EFB solution, that information, the mission supporting information, is nevertheless available to the flight crew. And we can help with any regulator anywhere. We just happen to be very mature when it comes to some of the regulatory contexts.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something that, if you look through these regulatory documents and you figure out it answers 95% of what you need, reach out to us, sales@foreflight.com. We've got several great people from our sales team in the Asia Pacific region answering questions as they come in right now live. We're happy to help with anything about that. Thank you so much, Thatch, for taking those questions. I've got a few more here that I'll just run through really quickly. The first has to do with, we've talked about the regulatory documents on this page at foreflight.com/regulatory-documents. Where can I get the documents related to FAA approval to see if those meet the requirements of your regulatory authority? That's something that you can email our sales team to get. You can just send an email to sales@foreflight.com, include the questions that you have there, and just ask for the FAA documentation kit. Another question that
can I just add something to that I neglected to mention and should have, and that is that the question that was asked actually reveals an understanding of the fact that a lot of countries around the world will just simply accept the FAA document package or the EASA document package or the China without having to get into idiosyncrasies. So that's a very good question.
Absolutely, and thank you for that context. That's very helpful. Another question that we have, it relates to JepView. So that's the computer software to view Jeppesen plates and Jeppesen charts. The question is, will JepView be sunset as well? And that answer is yes, it will be, but it may not be, or it's not going to be on the same timeline as Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck. What's going on is ForeFlight is developing the capability within ForeFlight's website to view Jeppesen charts. And we have some capability there now, but until it is able to be used by anyone with a Jeppesen charting coverage, JepView will still be live, still be online. That program will not be sunset until after the ability to view Jeppesen charts, as long as you have a subscription in ForeFlight Web, until that is rolled out to everyone. The next question I have here says, I don't have the device that my charts were activated with. Where can I go to deactivate them? And the short answer is you can go to my.jeppesen.com. That's the self-service portal on the Jeppesen side of our business. If you have any questions related, if you have any issues on that website, I would contact Jeppesen customer service and they should be able to assist you with that. The last question that I'll answer here has to do with which iPads do my crew need to use ForeFlight. So it says the issue I have with my EFB is that the charts use a lot of data storage, especially if I download the worldwide charting coverage. What's your recommended storage that I should purchase for my company's iPads? And the answer is we have a great resource. It's called the ForeFlight Buying Guide. You can access that, and it's not mentioned on this list, but you will see this link in an email you'll get later today. It's foreflight.com/buying-guide. And what that includes is that we recommend 128 gigabytes of storage, and also just different recommendations for different sizes of iPads, since there are several out there. So before we go today, I want to mention these links one more time that you see on your screen here. We have foreflight.com/regulatory-documents. That's where you can download the EASA documentation package that we've been talking about. Now, like it says here, that does require a ForeFlight login. So if we jump down to the bottom of this slide, if you don't have one, you can reach out to our sales team and we'll be happy to connect you with the resources to get you those documents. Next, after you have a ForeFlight account and you download those documents, you can go ahead and get started on figuring out the first steps that you need to take to transitioning from Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck to ForeFlight Mobile. You can go to foreflight.com/first-steps for that. And then I will mention you can also register for more webinars and watch past ones at foreflight.com/webinars. And there, the video of this presentation will be posted there in the next 24 hours. Now, I will say that page does depend. It's a YouTube video that's embedded there. So if you're not able to access YouTube, we do have other resources to get our videos to you. Just contact the sales team at sales@foreflight.com and we'll be happy to help with that as well. Now, I will say this isn't the last time we'll be doing this webinar too. If you would like to attend another live session in the future, the information will be largely the same, but we'd love to have you. We'll be posting more times that you can register for those webinars at foreflight.com/webinars. We're also going to be putting together an additional webinar in addition to this one focused on the regulatory issues that you've seen today. But instead, we touched on in this webinar a little bit about how to begin getting familiar with ForeFlight as a Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck customer. Well, this webinar is going to go more into that. It's going to go more into the functionality of ForeFlight and the things you need to know before you use it for the first time. So it'll be a great resource to share with your crews, any pilots that you have that you bring on as well. It'll be a great resource to get them familiar with the ForeFlight program. So with that, I want to thank you all so much for coming today. We've enjoyed having you, and we will see you on the next webinar.